welcome to the Tea Party Hardy channel. We are glad to have you here. It's 2019 and Trump has finally defeated Barack Obama's JV team, ISIS, and taken away their caliphate. While Obama was scratching his head over what to do, Trump came in and told his generals to defeat them, and now they have. This doesn't mean ISIS ideology is destroyed any more than Catholicism, baptism, Hinduism, or any other religious belief will dry up when you take away their land. But it does mean Trump took away their ability to have a home base from which to plan and coordinate their heinous attacks on worldwide citizens. The number of families who lost innocent members to ISIS over the Obama years will never be forgotten by their loved ones. And knowing that ISIS has no home to go to now offers a small satisfaction for the loss of a loved one. But solace remains in the knowledge that scattered forces cannot take away as many lives as comfortable assembled ones. That was the reason Osama bin Laden's removal was celebrated. He wasn't living in a cave, he was living in a compound where planning continued. Sure, the press was there for Obama's triumph, but where are they now that Trump has still another feather in his cap of campaign promises kept? Oh, that's right. They're holding back tears, like Rachel Maddow on Friday night when the Mueller report came in revealing there are no more indictments to be announced, which is a de facto way of saying there was no Russia collusion. ISIS was a JV team, was fake news before the term was popularized by the New York Times to hurt Trump. But Trump knows brands better than near anyone. Ask low-energy jabber Crooked Hillary. And Trump took the term fake news and showed the American public who was really spreading fake news. And the mainstream media have had to live with that ever since. Sadly, they didn't start fighting harder to prevent fake news either, as a way of combating President Trump's use of it. All who pay attention can fill in a long list of stories that were boasted as true, only to be quickly shut down as pure imagination, and often were attacks against Trump or his supporters. As the saying goes, why does fake news always go in only one direction against conservatives? If they were honest mistakes, there should be an equal sampling of mistakes going to the left. But of course, there's not. Let's look at the stories now. The rise and fall of the ISIS Caliphate. Once a magnet for would-be jihadists worldwide, Islamic State dominion collapsed amid, get this, infighting and paranoia. Can you imagine that? The reason that it collapsed had nothing to do with military strikes. No, infighting and paranoia. Thanks, Guardian. We'll come back to that later. ISIS lost its last territory in Syria, but the attacks continue. And don't you forget it. Thanks, New York Times, for telling us. But listen to this. By nearly every metric, the Islamic State is at its lowest point in almost 5 years since it declared its caliphate. The group controls no territory in Iraq and Syria. Attacks are down, and the number of foreign fighters it continues to recruit is a fraction of what it was at its height. But analysts who have studied ISIS since its rise in Iraq more than 15 years ago point out that the group is far more powerful today than it was when American forces pulled out of Iraq in 2011. Now, how do you square that circle? Does that remind anyone else of analysts who said Hillary was going to win? And take a look at that chart. Look at 2015 and 2016 and see how Obama fought his JV team. And then look at the later years and see how Trump fought an enemy. There was no slowing down of the mass murder during Obama's term. But shortly after Trump was brought in, look at that chart. That's how you defeat an enemy and take away their caliphate. In another New York Times story, ISIS Caliphate crumbles as the last village in Syria falls. American-backed forces took the last remnant of territory under Islamic State rule in Syria, but signs of the group's resurgence are already visible. But look at what it says deeper in the story. Now, this is going to sound familiar because it's also New York Times. By nearly every metric, the Islamic State is now diminished force compared to its zenith 4 years ago. It has far fewer fighters and far less land, and the number of attacks it carries out worldwide has nosedived. And there's the contradiction in the writing. U.S.-backed forces in Syria declare final victory over ISIS. Yay! So the world is now free of an ISIS caliphate, and the press is hell-bent on making sure you know that doesn't mean ISIS is gone. Oh no, the JV team lives! But they have no place to call home now, thanks to Donald J. Trump and a lot of brave military folk who made it happen. Not a word in the story from The Guardian mentions Obama or Trump's name. All right, it's a British publication, but to leave out the leaders of the free world, where one resided over its creation and did little to shut it down, and the other who immediately set to eliminate them, and now it's just reporting a story. It's not reporting the story, it's just reporting a story without two of its main players. It's Hamlet without the mother and the uncle. It's Iron Man without Tony Stark. Those New York Times stories about the issue had no mention of Obama at all. I guess they're following Thumper's rule. If you can't say something nice about somebody, then don't say nothing at all. And they sure are saying a lot of nothing about Obama. Consider that syllogism. Both the New York Times and CBS point out Trump was the man calling the shots to end the caliphate. But both spend far more time warning ISIS is anything but gone. Clearly, ISIS now has a friend in the media, with the media's assurances of, "Don't worry, ISIS is there waiting to get you." Yet where were those warnings when Obama called them the JV team and heads were actually rolling all over the Middle East? Shame is a word the media doesn't know how to self-apply. What else should we expect from those who are still trying to pick up their jaws that they have failed at the Russian collusion story, even after 2 long years of lying to the public about it? Yes, lying. They knew the dots were created by their pens, not Trump's actions. Mueller wraps up, but don't expect the hysteria to end. Special counsel Bob Mueller has handed in his report, marking the effective end of the 3-year Trump-Russia investigation. Hallelujah! This means that the Mueller firmly expects to file no more criminal charges, which pretty much confirms that all the media and political hysteria about his investigation was driven by more partisan wishful thinking than by anything resembling hard evidence. Yep. Sadly, even a report that clearly states that there's zero evidence President Trump and his campaign team ever did anything wrong, it's not going to bring an end to the nonsense. The Democratic-controlled House is already starting its own investigations, which will be enough to launch hundreds of news stories, what they might find, and about what anonymous sources claim they have found. But most Americans will learn a big lesson from how the chattering classes misrepresented the Mueller probe. The hysterics will be playing to an even smaller audience, while the rest of the country moves on. Mueller report: House Democrats will continue separate investigations into Trump-Russia. And congressional committees are not limited, as Mueller's team was, by its mandate to look into Russian interference in the 2016 presidential election. Oh no! House Democrats plan to use the oversight powers of Congress to look into Trump's finances and other aspects of his presidency. You can see the Mr. Burns effect where they're just rubbing their hand going, excellent. The House Judiciary Committee recently launched investigations into whether Trump sought to obstruct justice. That would have been in the Mueller report, and they know it. Or misuse his powers, requesting documents from 81 agencies, entities, and individuals connected to the administration and Trump's private businesses. The House Intelligence Committee announced it will look into Russian interference in their 2016 election as well as Trump's foreign financial interest. Yep, so it's over. ISIS Caliphate and the Mueller witch hunt. But for those who live by the rule, never say die, the Democrats are anything but done with investigating Russia. And that means MSNBC et al. Won't have to learn how to reprogram their chyrons quite yet. What does this mean for the election in 2020? It means that Democrats that follow the path of Russia are in the same boat as socialists, the Green New Deal supporters and lovers of The Last Jedi. They have plenty of Twitter followers, but few American voters. We shall see. But it looks like these politicians are willing to cut off their noses to save their faces. Hey, didn't affect Michael Jackson's career, so anything's possible. As we sign off, we have a final salute for ISIS, as their caliphate has been destroyed. Thanks for tuning in. If you want to like, we'd love to have you give a like. If you want to subscribe, you're always welcome in the family. And if you want to share, wow, that would be so cool. That would be amazing. We hope you're enjoying the content, and we hope to be bringing you more as time goes on. Thanks so much,